Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Mandy's Corner Pub. Come on in, pull up a stool, relax, and let's get started with Rise Tuesday. Okay guys, I know I announced a couple of weeks ago that I would be doing interviews with the gracious and amazing content creators and streamers that are part of Rise. And we're going to kick those interviews off this week, starting with none other than Capp. Guys, let me tell you, we had some technical issues while we were doing this interview, and most people would have looked at me and said, you know what, forget it. No, Capp was so very gracious and such a good sport about it, and I think you guys are really going to see what a funny, intelligent, and just all-around great human being he actually is. So, without further ado, let's get on into the interview. Hope you guys enjoy it. And one last thing, if you have not checked out Capp, get your butt over there and check out his channel. Oh, see, my birds agree. They're tweeting at you. Check out Capp. Okay, guys. Hope you enjoyed the interview. I will see you after it's over. Alrighty. Hello, Capp. And do you want to do them in the order I sent them to you?
Hi there, and yeah, that's fine. We can go in whatever order you want to and kind of ad lib as needed, you know. That's
okay.
Fine with me.
Okay. All right. First question. At what age did you start gaming, and what was the first game you played?
The first game I ever played was Pitfall on the original Atari, and I was in kindergarten, so I had to have been right around the age of 5. I don't know specifically, but that was the first game. I had a stepsister at the time, and she was playing it one day, and I was like, what is this? You know, watching her jump and swing over an alligator pit, and I was hooked. And, you know, so Pitfall was the very first game that really got me into the idea of what gaming was, and it hooked me from then on.
So we have your sister to thank for all your videos.
Oh, yeah. She's the catalyst that started this whole domino effect.
Well, thank her for us.
Will do.
Okay, why did you start doing videos and streaming in the first place?
In 2010, some friends started introducing me to YouTube gameplay sort of things like Call of Duty style back with Modern Warfare 2, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. This is something I would like to do one day, maybe. But of course, I didn't know how, didn't have the equipment. And mid-2010, I started watching a YouTuber named David Angel, and he had a Minecraft series where he was calling it the X Cave. Now, this was, as far as I'm concerned, this was before CNNers got into the game. So this is what really got me into playing it. And I was just completely fascinated. And so I started playing it. I got my brother and I got some of my friends, and we all became really obsessed with the game, really. And so I decided one day, I was like, I want to show you guys the cave that I've made, this cool house and what I've built. I've been working on it for like a month. I want to show you what I have. And so I was like, I'll just record it. I downloaded a free screen recording thing, and I put it on my channel so they could watch it. And it ended up blowing up on Reddit. It got featured on the forums page, and it just kind of took off. And so like dozens of subscribers were coming in, and it was like an accidentally taking off. And within the first 3 months of having my channel, I had passed like 100,000 views. I had a couple hundred subscribers. YouTube contacted me saying, hey, by the way, you know, you're doing really well. Would you like to sign up a partnership with this? Maybe make some money? And I was like, holy cow, this was totally an accident, but I'm totally fine with that.
No arguments, huh?
No, not at all. So it was kind of just started off as a way to show my friends what I was doing, and ended up turning into something way more than that.
I'm glad it did. I know a lot of folks are, but I'm very glad it did.
Well, thank you.
How long have you been doing it so far?
Oh, like I said, I started out the middle to the end of 2010. I didn't have high-end gaming equipment. I was still playing primarily on consoles at the time, so I had a computer, but I didn't have much with it. And so most of my first videos are recorded on an old laptop using the built-in mic. It was just terrible quality. Go back and watch those now, and it's like, oh, it's just terrible.
Oh, man.
At least a little bit. But that's how, about mid to end 2010, I guess.
So yeah, it's getting to be old hat now, though, huh?
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite movie of all time, and why?
Okay, favorite movie is Apollo 13. It's one of my favorite all-time movies. I've been fascinated with space since I was a little kid. Wanted to be an astronaut when I was a little kid. And the movie's just star-studded. Tom Hanks is one of my all-time favorites. Gary Sinise, Ed Harris, Kevin Bacon, Bill Pullman. It's just a wonderfully cast movie. Beautiful score by James Horner, rest in peace. It just has a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling to it. And even all these years, I watch it at least once or twice a year now. And every time I do, I still have that same feeling there. It's one of those that it affects me every time I watch it. And I've been fascinated with it ever since I saw it in the theaters. And so it's one of my go-tos for sure.
It was an all-star cast, and it's rare for a movie after you've seen it so many times to still affect you years later. So that tells me the writers did their job.
Right. You can see right behind me, I've got racks full of movies here. These are all movies that I don't mind watching over and over again. If it becomes one of my favorites, it ends up on that wall, and Apollo 13 is right over there at the beginning.
That's good. That's a good spot for it. That's a lot of movies too.
I've been collecting them for a good while now, so.
Well, speaking of collections, I collect books. What's your favorite book and why?
Well, this is one of those that it took me a little while to kind of figure out exactly what I wanted to have as my favorite book. I really deliberated and went back and forth over what I would label my favorite book. And I think I'd have to say it's The Martian by Andy Weir.
Oh, yes.
Similar reasoning to Apollo 13, fascination with space. And it's funny. And yeah, it's fiction, but it's still scientifically and mathematically correct. And just seeing the process that somebody in that situation would go through to solve such a huge problem. I don't know. It's the first book in a long time that I read all the way through. I wanted to read it before the movie came out. And then I was like, oh my God, that was so good. And I started it over again immediately. So I read it twice before the movie came out, and I've read it a time again since then. So I don't know. That's probably my favorite book of all time now.
Oh, that's a good choice too. And let me ask you this. This was not on the list, but I've got to ask. I'm one of these people that 9 times out of 10, the movie is never as good as the book. What was your opinion in this case?
To me, I would say the movie was about 95% as good as the book. And the only reason I can say this, and I did a review about this when it came out, is that the movie was too short. There was so much that happened in the book, just a lot of the things he did to have to solve a problem. It took a lot more work than they showed in the movie. And I totally get it. The movie would have been 8 hours long had they included everything that happened. So I get that they had to keep it within a normal time constraint. So that was my only qualm with it, was that they had to trim it down so much.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, you didn't even show the part where he accidentally rolled the rover over and fall off into the cavern and have to use the crane to fix that. Oh, he had a nice, joyous journey in the movie. So that was the biggest complaint. So,
well, if that's the biggest complaint you had, then they did a pretty good job. Because I know,
yeah, definitely.
If you're anything like me, you'll sit and pick things like that apart, and I'm horrible about that. So,
yeah, I've done that with the Dan Brown movies. I've read the book before the movie comes out, and I'm just like, oh man, I can't believe they did it this way. It was so good in the book that way. Why did they choose that? That sort of thing. My wife's the same way. She reads way more than I do.
Has she gotten into Odd Thomas or any of the Inspector Gamache series?
I don't believe so. She I don't even know how to classify what she reads, because the books I've never heard of. Some are like the Oprah's book club, some of the book of the month on her Kindle or whatever it is she uses there. She's read books I've never even heard of. She reads way more than I do.
All right, tell her from me to definitely check out Louise Penny. Okay. And the Odd Thomas series by Dean Koontz. If she's into any kind of mysteries, she should get into both of those. Okay, and Odd Thomas throws in a little supernatural too. So that's one of those I was really picky about when they made a movie out of it. Mm-hmm. I sat there through the movie picking it apart, and the husband is sitting next to me going, would you just stop and watch the movie? Yeah, it wasn't good.
It's hard, as I do the same thing as an IT person. I'm watching the movie and I'm just like, yeah, that's not how that works. Try not to be like, oh, that's funny, because there's no way they'd work that way. She's like, shut up, I don't care.
Well, let's talk about a world that is specifically not supposed to be based in reality. Let's talk about comic books. What's your favorite and why?
I kind of have to pick two, just kind of evenly here, and it's going to be Wolverine and Deadpool.
Oh,
And
yes.
and the main reason why is because they're like the anti-hero heroes. They don't claim to be heroes. They don't want to be called heroes. They are anti that whole concept, but they step up to the challenge when they have to. They're snarky, they're sarcastic, they're unfiltered. They do not care about what other people think about them. Do
Yep.
whatever they want to. And I really like that. They're not the, oh, I'm here to save the day. It's kind of like, I don't want to.
Yep. I don't want to, but if y'all ain't gonna leave me alone, I guess I'll take care of it.
Yeah, they're just funny, and I like that. It's kind of a darker style of humor, and to me, that's always been the funniest kind.
I, one of the things I liked about both of them too is they're not, even their backgrounds were never perfect. They
Right.
did not have this perfect, wonderful, saintly life. I just, especially Wolverine. I mean, Logan, his background was, less than desirable in so many ways.
Right, exactly. Same thing with Wade and Deadpool. Start off
Mm-hmm.
you're discharged and turned into a merc, just killing people for cash. So
Hey, you do what you got to do.
exactly, and have a good sense of humor about it too. And that's what I like about those. Is they're just, they're little one-liners.
You kind of answered this next question already. Your real life job. What's your real life occupation?
My real life job, I'm the IT director for a home health company. I manage all the computer systems, the network, security, all that sort of stuff. I have a degree in networking certifications from Microsoft and CompTIA. I actually own a small computer business where I do, like on the weekends and after hours, do computer repairs for churches and stuff like that. And since that doesn't necessarily take up all my time at work, I also do all the billing. Since it's home health, we do a lot of insurance and medical and Medicare billing, and so I
Yeah.
manage all that as well. So I wear a couple of different hats around there. My title is IT director, but there's a whole bunch of other things that I do too.
When I hear IT, what I automatically have in my head is some poor person sitting there having to listen while somebody that didn't know how to push the right button on the computer complains that the computer is fried when they didn't know how to turn it on in the first place.
That's exactly why we ask one of two questions. Like, one, is it plugged in? And two, did you try restarting it to see if that fixed your problem? It's a trope, but it's because it's like 99% of the problem. That's what it was like. Oh, I didn't even know my monitor was off. I thought the mouse was broken. I'm like, what?
Oh my lord, I feel so bad for anybody that has to deal. I've worked with the public many times, but I cannot imagine being in that particular position because I know I'm guilty of it too. Calling somebody and complaining to them when it was something that was totally my fault. So if you can do it with a smile and not blow up at these people, you are a saint. I promise you, you are a saint.
Well, I've gotten good about the teaching side of things, which kind of falls over into how I do my videos, instructional. Because a lot of the people we work with have been in the healthcare industry for 30 plus years, and so there's times I get people call me on the phones, and they're literally like older than my mom. And to be able to like, okay, all right, here, just slow down. I'll walk you through what you need to do to fix this problem. And they're not all just young people that didn't figure it out. It's a lot of times it's older people that didn't even have a computer until they started working within just in the last few years. And so
Yeah.
it's like, look at your desktop, and they start looking down at the top of their desk. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a long call. Okay, I need coffee. I'll be right back.
Oh man, yeah. I can't see how for older people who did not grow up with computers and suddenly your employer goes straight to just an all computer system. It probably throws them for a loop pretty good.
It absolutely does. I've experienced that before. It's terror, and I have to remind them like there's nothing you can do to this that's going to break it. Don't be afraid to touch it. Don't be afraid to kind of play with it. Just you're not going to hurt it, so don't be afraid of it. I had a few people that were just like, never used a computer. I don't like computers. I'm afraid to even touch it because I'm so worried I'm going to break it. Like, you're fine. You're fine.
Well, you don't know me very well. I could break anything. Just watch.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Here's one that I'm really interested in hearing about. What do your family, friends, and coworkers think of what you do as far as your content creation? What is their first impression, the first thing they ask you about it?
Well, when my son talks to me about it, because he watches YouTube, he has his own channel, that sort of thing, he gets excited about it because he understands it. Everybody else hasn't a clue and couldn't care less for the most part. They're not disinterested, but it's kind of like when they talk to me about their job, it's they're just like, oh yeah, we did this, I'm doing this on the channel, I got these plans, I got, the Patreon's doing well, and I kind of get the, oh, that's cool. So most of the people I know don't even know I do this. Again, it's kind of the intentional, not by they're rude or they don't care. It's kind of to keep that disconnect, so that they're not being brought into a world I don't want other people to experience. Just in case the random troll shows up, I don't want them to be like, oh, okay, well, we figured out where you work, and now we figured out where your wife works, we figured out where your son goes to school. So for the most part, most people don't even know. The few people that do that understand it are like, well, that's kind of cool. I check an occasional video now and then, and it seems pretty fun. But so for the most part, they're just, that's cool. And then move on.
Well, I can understand your reasoning for kind of keeping the world separate. That makes perfect sense. It does. And I have checked out some of your son's videos. That child seems to have a blast. He's going to give you a run for your money one of these days.
Absolutely.
He is. You could tell he's already got your same curiosity about things. One of the first videos of his I watched, he was setting up chambers, I think it was, to do experiments on zombies.
Yes. And he's been doing that in every kind of sandbox game. Even, kind of really got to start doing it on Minecraft. And yeah, it was the same thing. He would, set up this test shop, basically. He had these little chambers where he'd want to lock people away to do his little experiments on to see what would happen. It's funny how his mind works. He's like, oh, I want to set up an entire lab. I don't know if I'm ever going to use it, but I want to set it up. So.
Oh, I love it. That curiosity will serve him well later in life, though. It really will. It really will.
Absolutely.
And I think I know probably what one of your favorite things to do when you're not making content or playing games. I've got a feeling it probably involves that little guy we were just talking about. But what's your favorite things to do when you're not making videos or playing?
Yeah, most of my time is, of course, spent with him. He's my best buddy. I'm his best buddy. We spend all our time together, and spending time with my wife and, my mom and my brother. My brother just brought home his brand new baby today. I actually just got to go meet him, so we're excited about that. We have a new baby in the family. Everybody's thrilled, and so family is the first thing that takes up most of my time. When I do have some free times, I love playing golf. I like basketball. We go for nature hikes as a family, go through bike rides. I've always had a fascination with drawing. I don't do that as much as I used to, and I really wish I would. Something I've always enjoyed. And movies. As you can see, got a collection of movies back here. I love going to the movies, just chill, sit in the dark for 2 hours, eat some popcorn, and just disappear for a little bit.
That's a nice way to spend an evening. It really is. Now, didn't you do a little photography too?
I try to. I'm kind of still getting into it. I'm still learning. I follow a few YouTubers that do professional photography, and so I'm still learning. There's a lot of it, and I have a tendency of, once I get a fascination with something, to overindulge myself on it. And so I have to, if I don't be real careful, I'll be like, okay, I have to know everything. Just open my head and dump all the knowledge in, and I have to get a new camera. I've got to get new lenses. Oh, I need 12 different lenses because why not? So I have to be real careful. I'm like, okay, one camera, one lens. We'll learn how to, do this first. And well, what about photography, editing? Okay, well, now we need to know Photoshop and Lightroom. Slow down. I've only got just so much time in the day.
Oh, mate. Photography was something that I always wanted to get into more, but it just, I had so many things going on at once. And then when they went to talking about, you've got to get the lighting just right, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, I am going to so botch this.
I do that too. In my head, it sounds and looks great. And then in actual practice, I'm like, wow, I suck at this.
I don't know. I saw a couple you had posted. I thought they were pretty good.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I only post the ones that I'm like, okay, that one doesn't suck. I'm not going to share the ones that are terrible.
Hey, that's just smart PR right there. That's what that is.
Exactly.
Okay. Here's one of the big questions. It's an argument we've all heard in the gaming community. PC or console, and why?
PC versus console. Consider myself just a gamer. I play whatever game it is that I'm interested in on whatever platform that game happens to be on. Most of the time, I will lean more towards PC as I have been the last few years, but mostly because it works for what I want to play, and all my friends are also playing on PC. And so most of the time, I pick where the biggest group of my friends are playing. I've been playing consoles since the Atari. I still have every one of my original consoles all the way back since I was a kid. They still work, and all my original games, but I'm not one over the other. Consoles have the benefit that they are much easier to play with friends. Drop a game in, start up a party, invite your friends, you're good to go. That's all it takes to play.
Yep.
PC, you got to have the game. You got to make sure everybody's connected on your friends list. You got to have a third-party app to be able to talk to each other. You got to have another app if you want to try and record it. It's just there's so much more it takes on PCs. Now, PC is great because you have so many more options, more customization, higher graphics, more performance, etc., etc. But it's that diminishing returns. Like, I have all this power and it takes so much work to get it to work right. Oh, I don't have the right port open, so my friends can't join my world. And now I got to do port forwarding, and they got to do the same when there is. Versus console, you don't have to do that. So, to me, I don't consider one better than the other. I think it's just whatever works best for whatever game you're trying to play.
Good point. And I'm kind of like you. As far as still having all my old consoles, I've still got my old Atari, GameCube, original Xbox. Then there's the PS1, the PS2. Didn't have a 3, but got the 4. Xbox 360. We've got consoles spread all through this house. It's horrible.
It's awesome with me. A lot of my older ones I have in a with the games because I don't play them. I've got emulators set up if I want to play an old NES game. So my original NES is in a box with all the games and the controllers, and still functions. I've recently tested it, but I'm like, if I really want to play an old Genesis game, I've got an emulator I can fire up a lot easier than digging out the old consoles.
Oh, yeah. Well, this next question kind of goes along with all of this. What's your opinion of the whole PC master race versus console players, that big divide, and how can we kind of close that divide a little bit? How can we fix it?
That one's going to be a little challenge. I've honestly thought the whole master race thing was stupid from the get-go. I don't know why everybody has to try and force one side or the other. If it's not PC, it's like, oh, well, if you're on PlayStation, you're a blah, 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 versus Xbox, which is grand and wonderful, or vice versa. I'm like, why does everything have to be so divisive when it comes to these? It's like, I don't know, and that filters over to so many other different parts of life, too, that we're not going to get into. But it's like, if you don't pick the same side I do, then you're the enemy, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And until we as a collective group realize, just like, hey, there's no reason to try and exclude somebody because they choose a different platform that you do. And if we would say, hey, that's cool that you're on PC, I play on PlayStation here, there's a couple games that overlap, maybe we could get together and play those games or something.
Exactly.
I don't know, trying to make people feel bad because they don't have $2,000 to drop on a high-end console or a high-end PC, that doesn't help them want to become a PC gamer. It just makes them think you're kind of a dill hole, and they probably don't want to associate with you to start with. So
exactly. Well, it's kind of like I say, a gamer's a gamer. It doesn't really matter what platform you're playing on. Whether you're console or PC, it's all part of the same beast. Exactly. So I've always been confused by the whole bickering back and forth, and I've seen it come from both sides.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, why don't everybody just shut up and find something, it's cross-platform, and let's sit down and play and get along. So,
right. This argument has gone back for, way longer than just PC versus console. I mean, go back to the NES versus Genesis days. I mean, I think a lot of it had to be the way they marketed towards each other, too. It was just all the commercials ingrained of just, ours is better than theirs. No, ours is better than theirs. We have exclusives. Oh, we have exclusives. And so it came down to, like, well, I'm sorry, I can only afford one, and I want to play this game. So I was like, you're just a pleb. You got an NES. Genesis has way better graphics. I was like, yeah, but I want to play this game. Like, yeah, but you chose wrong. And so I think it started back then, I think, and it just progressed. And you had the NES versus Genesis sort of situation. And then you had Dreamcast come out and try to compete with Nintendo for 64, which Dreamcast was a great system just ahead of its time. And then Xbox versus PlayStation, and now it's PC jumps in the mix. They're like, hey, we're the best. You guys suck. It's
Yep, that's pretty much it. And I remember as a kid, I had an NES, and this guy I rode the bus with had just gotten his Sega, and he looked at me. You're one of those poor kids because you've got an NES. And I was like, what? I didn't know what he was talking about. It's like, we're playing games, dude. I mean,
like, you got Mortal Kombat for the Super Nintendo? You don't even have blood. Oh, you have
sweat. Like, exactly.
Wait, what? That's a thing? Huh? Great. Now I need a new console so I can play the exact same game but with blood.
Yeah, exactly. Now, as far as the whole PC console thing goes, I started 7 Days to Die actually on console.
Oh, really?
The only reason I went ahead and got it on PC was I realized, of course, PC version was a little more advanced, a little further along than the console. And I could get mods on the PC, whereas I couldn't on the console. So, but I still have games on the console I play. I've got games on the computer I play. It just depends on what I'm in the mood for that day.
They're two different experiences, even with the same game.
Yes, two totally different experiences. Every now and then, I still fire up the PS4 to play 7 Days to Die on it, even though I've got 5, 6 different versions of it on my computer. Right. I will still fire it up on the console once in a while. And so I'm kind of like you. It's kind of like, why argue about it? I mean, it doesn't make much sense. Yes.
Precisely.
Now this question, I'm not sure I could completely narrow this one down myself, but I want you to try. Favorite game?
This one was probably one of the last questions I answered in my own head here because I couldn't come up with an answer to. Just going to throw a title out there, and then I'll provide my reasoning. And that's going to be Final Fantasy III, which in Japan version, Final Fantasy VI, but it's Final Fantasy III. And the main reason why is because it's probably one of the first games where I really felt to connect to the characters. I really felt like, I don't know, a little bit of loss if one of the characters disappeared from the story. I don't know, it's just one of the first stories I really got into. And I'd played RPGs before then. I played Final Fantasy II and the first one, and Dragon Warrior and Shining Force and all that other stuff. But that's the first game that I probably have started and finished the most number of times. But, God, that was such a hard question because it's really easy to choose game from different generations. There's the 16 32-bit generation. There's so many great games back then, and then there's the uptick of 3D game with like N64 and PlayStation 1, and there's so many good games there. And then like BioShock, the first one, had such an amazing story and probably one of the best scenarios, the best locations, in Rapture. I would just love that whole thing there. It's like, but the gameplay itself wasn't so unique. It was a first-person shooter, of course, but it was just the environment was so spectacular. So it was really hard to narrow down. But I think I'd probably go with Final Fantasy III, just because it's the game I've played the most in my whole life. Started so many times. I have a game going right now on my Raspberry Pi Just escaped from the caves of Narshi, and I'm getting ready to head over to Castle Figaro. So that's where I'm at. I probably have to just stop with that one.
Oh, mate. Sometimes it is hard to pick a favorite though, because one you may like the storyline of better. Another one, it may be the building mechanics you like better. And I know that's the way it is for me, because if somebody asks me that same question, I've got to sit and go, well, okay, am I supposed to pick it based on building mechanics, the storyline, the gameplay itself? So I knew that was kind of an unfair question when I put it on there. I just wanted to see how you guys would handle it. You did very well.
I went over this a while. I had a long list, and when I narrowed it down to just one, I don't know how to get down to just one favorite game.
Okay.
Oh, and the music is fantastic too, guys.
Oh, yes, that's true.
MIDI chip tune. Oh, I love those.
Well, this one, it may be a little unfair, but kind of along the same lines, but the hardest game you've ever played.
This was another one I had to narrow down to. Now, I'll throw this out there, and I may get chastised for it. It was like I never played any of the Dark Souls games, and I know those are just brutal, kick your butt all over the place games. I never played those. No specific reason why, but I had to pick a game. It's going to be Ghosts and Goblins on the NES.
Oh,
That
man.
game pissed me off so many different times. I don't know how many times I lost all 3 lives before I even got to the front door of that stupid castle. And all of those platformers back then were so hard. I had a long discussion with my brother trying to figure out the hardest game, and he's like, how many platformers were there that we never beat? Like Battletoads and Ghosts and Goblins and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all those NES games where we had 3 lives and no saves. So nowadays they're incredibly difficult, where they require mastering of timing and skill, and maybe you're not high enough leveled and stuff. It's like, yeah, but you got a save spot.
Exactly.
You screwed up 3 times, you started all over.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have to say Ghosts and Goblins is the biggest kick in the pods kind of you suck at gaming kind of game.
There's always one that really sticks it to you. Always one.
I tried playing it on the emulator, and I died before I even saw the castle. I'm like, nope, still can't play it. 30 years later, I still suck at this game.
Oh, man. Now, this question, I asked this partially because I've actually had people ask me this about all of you guys, and partially because I kind of wonder myself, why did you agree to be part of Rise?
Well, okay, realistic. How many people in their life have ever been given the opportunity to be a character in a book? That's not something that comes along every day. And so that kind of opportunity, it's like, are you kidding me? I would love to be in a book or a comic book or, whatever. It's like, if I have made enough of an impact in any form or fashion to where somebody wants to take that character, or me specifically, and share that into another story, that's just incredible. And on top of that, for us to be heroes of sorts, we're not the traditional kind of hero. I mean, it's a dream of a lot of kids. Everybody wants to be a superhero when they grow up of some sort. It's like, well, we don't have superpowers. We can't fly or anything like that. It's like, but we still get to be heroes in this story to save other people. And I don't know, to be part of a franchise, if you will, and get in from the ground floor, when given this opportunity, I'm like, absolutely. As soon as you mentioned it to me, I'm like, I get to be in a book? Are you kidding me? I told my wife, I was just like, I get to be in a book. You've never been in a book? Haha.
Oh, see, the bad part about it is every time I approached one of you guys, I was sitting there thinking, they're going to laugh in my face. They're going to laugh in my face. And I would tell my husband, I'm like, they're going to laugh in my face. And he's like, would you just calm down? And then when you said yes, you can ask him. It was like squeal so loud the neighbors heard it. So.
And that made me excited too, because I'm like, wow, I've made enough of an impact where somebody's excited for me to be a part of something. Like, I didn't realize that there was that level of impact. I mean, to me, I'm just regular Joe. I upload some videos. Sometimes some of them do kind of well, but for people to like, hey, we want you to be in a book, and hey, would you review this product? I'm like, oh, I'm a somebody. You love me. You really like me. Sally Fields. I'm just like, holy cow, this is awesome.
Oh, that was one of the things that I did want to come across with Rise. Everybody thinks they're just a regular Joe, but everybody affects somebody somewhere, whether they realize it or not. And to take all these guys that we all enjoy watching, that we all get such a kick out of, and put them in the position to show, they're not just ordinary Joes. It may not, like you said, may not be able to fly, may not be able to, go invisible, anything like that, but still be heroes. And that's kind of what I wanted to do with it, is show everybody has that in them somewhere. And absolutely. You guys, each one of you had a quality that made me think, yeah, this is one of the perfect people to get my point across. Each one of you is unique, but you each have particular qualities that kind of put you above other people in a way. Not in a snotty way, but just makes you stand out. And
well, I appreciate that too.
So that's why. And I remember the first time I watched one of your videos, I'm sitting there going, this guy likes to do all the stupid stuff I want to try in games, but I'm too chicken to do.
That's funny.
And I loved it. I loved it. You were sitting there, and I remember the first time my husband saw one of your videos, I was sitting there watching your videos, kind of checking you out, seeing what you were all about. And where was it you had built a tower? It wasn't really a tower. It was a stack of frames. And you were trying to see how far you could drop off of it or something. And I remember
damage probably.
Yes, and I remember that my husband walked in and he goes, "Oh wow." He said, "We wondered about this." He said, "Let's see if it kills him." And I'm sitting there thinking, well, that's kind of a crappy way to put it, but yeah, let's see if it kills him. And it got exactly, and it got him watching, and he was like, a lot of the stuff he's coming up with to try is stuff I never thought of, but it's something you really should stop to consider in game. And so I think that's part of why a lot of people like to watch a lot of your videos, because it's common sense. It's stuff you should think about, but for some reason you never do. And if you do, you're so worried about not wanting to lose the game or not wanting to die that you don't test the theory. Hey, Capp will test it. He'll do it. He doesn't care.
Yeah, I've always been one of those players in a game. It doesn't matter what game it is. I'm like, if I find myself at the top of a tall building, I'm going to jump off because I want to know what happens. I'm like, because I can't do it in real life. So, whether it's Grand Theft Auto or if it's Minecraft or something, I'm just like, wow, I'm on top of the tallest mountain. And now I'm going to jump off and see what happens and see if I can ragdoll at the bottom. I'm like, yay, that was so cool, man.
I can imagine you as a child.
Yeah, it was kind of the same thing. Just test out the most absurd things. Whether it was ramping my bikes over stuff. I'm like, hey, if I put this board on here, I can actually go higher and I can jump over people. So let's do that.
Your poor mother. Your poor mother.
You went gray a little early. The concept of how I do these videos accidentally kind of took on a life of its own, because I do more tutorial style things. When the newest version came out, I was like, okay, well, this, doing videos over all the new electronics and stuff that came in, and just showing people how the mechanics of the game work. And that's really how I've kind of built an audience. And then I had some people just like, well, what if you tried to do this with it? It's kind of outside the box. I'm like, let's see what happens, and I'll test it. And somebody's like, wow, that was a really cool test. What if you do this? I'm like, cool. Hey, y'all send me all these crazy tests you want me to do. I'll happily do them here. And it just kind of just took off, and people started really liking those. And then Sylvia showed up, and she accidentally showed up in the video. I don't even know. I pulled the name out of my butt one day, and it stuck. And now it's like, oh, we love Sylvia. And
oh yes, Sylvia's about to make an appearance somewhere else too.
Okay. Well, when it comes to Sylvia, the one thing I hope the Fun Pimps don't do is officially change the name of the character in the game to Sylvia, because right now it's just Undead Nurse.
Yeah.
The name I would hate for them to be like, you know what, people call her Sylvia, we'll just name her Sylvia, and then somewhere down the line, people think, oh, you're just ragging on, you're using the name they came up with. I'm like, no, Sylvia's mine.
Yep.
I made her my own. She's my assistant. She's mine. Give her to me.
We were watching. You were testing rocket launchers and everything else on her the other day. And the husband looks over at me and said, "You feeling kind of sorry for Sylvia?" I said, "Yep." I said, "That poor woman." I said, "It's not bad enough she had to die. Now she has to die over and over and over."
And she gets maimed pretty bad, loses some limbs, and she's a good sport though. She always comes back for more.
She's a glutton for punishment.
She's either really good or really stupid. I'm not quite sure which one it is, but she works well for me.
Well, talking about being a good sport and stuff, every content creator, streamer, most of them try to be upbeat, be a good sport about things, but there's always a troll somewhere trying to push buttons. Always some sort of little negativity sneaking in. How do you deal with that negativity when you come across it?
You've got to develop a thick skin to do any of this. It's just something you have to do, because the moment you start having a little bit of success, whether it's your gauge or somebody else's gauge, you're going to have people show up and just be a total jerk for no reason. And if you take it personal, it will ruin you and you will lose all the fun with it. The best thing you can do is completely ignore them and just realize, like, somebody you don't know, have never met, will never encounter a real person, said something about you. Do you really care? And so on my end, most of the time, I just ignore it. It doesn't bother me. I don't even give it a second thought.
Yeah.
If they're super hateful, I'll just block them. I'll report them. I mean, if they get to the point where it's like threats or anything, I just report them because that's unnecessary. If they think they're just being funny and they're trolling and stuff like that, I usually respond and put them in their place to make them look stupid. And then I'll have other people respond to my comment just like, oh, Capp got him so good. And it's kind of, I've heard way worse in real life than any of these a-holes are ever going to tell me online. They don't get under my skin. And that's really what you have to do this, is just don't let people online bother you. Yeah, nobody likes to hear anything negative said about them whatsoever, but if you're putting yourself out there, you got to set up for criticism and don't take it personal.
Good advice. That is good advice. Which
the TLDR version, block them, move on.
Exactly. And that kind of goes along with what I was going to ask next. Your advice to kids thinking of getting into content creation, streaming, anything like that. What would you tell kids is the top 3 things they need to remember?
Top 3 things. One, keep realistic expectations before you jump into this.
Yep.
Everybody has the thoughts of like, oh, I'll start uploading videos. Maybe I can start making a bunch of money and I can be famous and, millions of subscribers. That's an excellent long-term goal. But realistically, think of the first few videos I upload may get 0 views, especially if it's exactly like something somebody else is already doing. If you think, oh, I'll just make a Minecraft Let's Play and put it up there, and then a week later it's got 1 view, and it's like, well, why doesn't anybody watch him? Like, well, because there's probably 50,000 others just like it uploaded the same day.
Exactly.
You got to keep your expectations realistic. Everybody starts off terrible. It doesn't matter who you watch, how great their videos are. When they started off, they sucked at it. We all do. Go back and watch anybody's first videos. They're all terrible. So be prepared to suck early on and know that you'll get better at it. Embrace the suck. It's going to happen. Secondly, be yourself. If you try too hard to put on a personality and try to put yourself out there as an entirely different person than you are, it comes off as fake. If you're not naturally jumpy and you play like horror games and you're constantly going, oh my god, it looks really fake on video and people know that you're faking it. If you're not naturally a quip kind of person where you can just fire off one-liners as you're playing, it comes off as awkward, just like, oh, they think they're funny and they're not. So don't force it. Just be yourself. And the best thing is just literally just be yourself and do what it is that you want to do and develop a style that's yours. If you try and copy somebody else, it won't work. And eventually, with enough time in it, you will start to draw a bit of an audience, and they'll come to you for that personality. And then it doesn't really matter what game you play, they're there for you. If they show up for a specific game and you play something else, they won't watch it. And I see that all the time on my channel. I try something different, and most people don't care because they're there for a specific reason. So just, that's pretty much it, really. Keep your expectations realistic, be yourself, and, that's pretty much it, really.
That I think that's the two of the most important things. It's especially the realistic expectations. I mean, I know my youngest son, I've seen friends of his that think they're going to get on Twitch and suddenly not have to work a regular job and have all their bills paid. And, they're looking at like ninja, like they think they're going to reach ninja status tomorrow. And it's like, no, that's not going to happen.
Exactly. And people see Ninja, they're like, oh, he just blew up overnight. Like, he streamed for 7 years almost constantly before he finally got a break. I mean, he had a following, but not a break like he has now. So I'm like, 7 years worth of grinding his butt off.
Exactly.
So if you think he just fired up Twitch and blew up the first day, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen for anybody. It doesn't matter who you are.
So somebody actually made a comment to me about him the other day. He said, well, he blew up overnight, and usually when somebody blows up overnight, they're gone within a few weeks. I'm like, he didn't blow up overnight, though. I have not seen the first content creator or streamer that blew up overnight. Any of them that have been successful in any form, they had to pay their dues. They had to bust their butts. They lost sleep, because they go to work a regular job, try to spend time with families, then try to do content or stream. They're not blowing up overnight. They are putting in the work. And so I'm glad that's something that you were bringing up. Keep your expectations real and be yourself.
Yeah, embrace the suck. Like I said, if you start off streaming, you don't decide to record videos, you're going to stream a lot of times to just yourself. I've done it myself. I don't stream much as is, but there's been times when, I've been streaming for an hour and I look over, it's like viewer 0. And it's like, okay, well, I'm basically just playing by myself, but let's just keep going. Everybody's going to start off. And if you let your first attempt dictate your success, you're going to fail.
Exactly. Because I know somebody asked me one time, said, because, I never intended to start doing YouTube videos. I never intended to start streaming. It all came about purely by accident. And somebody asked me, said, well, your first stream, how many people did you have? I was like, 1. I said, and they were only there for like 5 minutes. Well, then what did you do? What I normally do when I'm cleaning around the house, I talk to myself and I answer myself. So, I was playing, I was having fun, I was, just goofing off. So that's one thing too. I have seen a lot of creators and streamers that they try to play something that they do not enjoy, and that translates through that camera every time.
Absolutely.
So
you got to play something that you're having fun with, and if you're having fun with it, it'll naturally come across as more enjoyable. If you're like, well, I got to jump on and play Fortnite because that's the most popular game. It's like, oh, I suck at this. I'm stressed out. I'm not having fun. It's like, play something different.
Exactly.
I've never streamed a game that was popular. I've streamed all kinds of weird games, and sometimes nobody watches. I've actually seen tutorial videos popping up that have a ton of views. So, people are looking, it's like how to talk to yourself while streaming, because that's all you're talking to, really. You can answer questions in the chat, but you're talking to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
It works the same whether you're streaming or if you're recording videos. You're talking to yourself. And for everybody who, another tip for people who are just starting off, talk to yourself for 20 minutes straight in a mirror and see if you can do it, because that's pretty much what it's like. If you start saying and find yourself blanking out, keep practicing a little bit, or your first video is going to be full of uhs and and silence and awkwardness. And
you know what I told my mom the other day? She when I was a kid, the teachers were constantly sending her notes home that I talked too much in class, and that it was never going to serve me well in life. And I'm sitting there going, okay, Go ask YouTube and Twitch. They like for people to talk a lot. So
Yes, they do.
they created a place for people like me that just don't shut up.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I got in trouble for talking a lot as a kid too. It's like it sounds just like me. And sometimes, I have people show up to videos and like, you talk way too much. I'm like, it's an instructional commentary. What do you expect?
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, like the ones that are just silent and people uhs and ums. I'm like, nobody watches those because they suck.
Exactly. Well, this kind of leads me into something that I'm really curious to see how each one of you is going to answer this one in particular. What are you most passionate about?
Well, for me, as I've mentioned here, my family and our general well-being. Um, being at my age, I'm in my mid to late 30s, and so I think more about the longevity of my family. Basically, I'm not so much just like, oh, I need to worry about trying to find a job or I need to worry about finishing school. I'm like, I've done that, and yeah, I hope my job stays the way it is for indefinitely, of course. But my passion really is making sure that our future is secure, and so that's why I put so much time into my family. And of course, um, I had a wonderful childhood growing up, and I want little man to have the same thing. I can look back on mine and just remember so many good memories, and so I want him to be able to do the same thing and be like, you know what,
Yeah,
I had the best daddy in the whole world, and now I want to try and be better than that.
and
That's where it's really.
that's an awesome goal. That really is. I've seen a lot of kids that didn't have the best childhood. They didn't have the best role models, and or parents that tried, but they put too much emphasis on something else before the family,
Yeah.
before the kids. So I think he's going to look back when he is older and be very tickled with the way his dad treated him, the way his dad tried to look out for him. I think he's going to be very happy, and he'll pass that on to his kids too. He will remember what you did for him, and he'll try to do that for his kids too.
That's when I get to the end of the road, I want to be able to look back and be like, you know what? I had a good time with my family and they remember that, and that's what counted the most, and I enjoyed that part of it there. I didn't, oh well, these other things were so more important, I put them in front of the family. So to me, that's, family is priority one.
That's an awesome thing. That is a very good thing. Well, what do you think of the idea some of us have previously discussed about a type of charity based in the gaming community? I'd thrown out the idea of the name Playing for the Future. What do you think of the idea, and what would you like to see it used for? What would you like to see it do in particular?
I think it's a fantastic idea. I mean, anything that you can do to help out kids. To me, being a kid should be the most wonderful time of your life. I mean, there's perks, of course, of being an adult and all that other stuff, but the best time of your life should be when you're a kid. And unfortunately, there's too many situations where that's not the case, whether it's because of, something happened to the parents, or they just don't care enough about the kids, or
Mm-hmm.
so many different things, health related, and those hurt my heart the worst. And so anything that can be done to give a kid a chance to just be a kid. They're supposed to be able to look back and smile at the memories. They're supposed to be able to just dream and play and dance, sing, play games, enjoy without the stresses of where's my next meal coming from, or am I going to have a place to sleep the next
Yeah.
time? And I don't know. Every charity my wife and I donate to, which we have set up on a monthly thing now, is something to do with kids. It's March of Dimes, it's St. Jude's, it's the Ronald McDonald House, it's the Arlington Women and Children's Shelter. It's things like that because those to me matter the most, and it's what I get the most passion from, is trying to help them. So I'm like, the thought of a kid waking up Christmas morning and not having a tree to run to and presents to open like that, it really bums me out. And so we adopt a family or multiple families every Christmas and try and help them out. And so any kind of charity that's going to try and help a kid to have a better life, whether it's through gaming or for whatever it is, I think it's just absolutely fantastic, and I'm behind it all the way.
That's awesome. Kids, to me, the two most overlooked and underappreciated groups in our country in particular. I know a lot of other countries, because of their cultures, they look at things a little differently. But to me, kids and the elderly have always been kind of, I don't know. It's not necessarily that they're swept under the rug or anything, but it's just nobody appreciates them for what they are or what they could be. You know, kids,
They have already contributed.
yes, kids are our future. The elderly, they're the ones who help lay that path for the kids to become the future. They're the ones who helped put so many things in place that we take for granted now. So that's two of the groups I wanted to concentrate on the most was kids and the elderly, and to a lot of degrees the disabled, because a lot of people look at anybody disabled as throwaway, I guess you'd say.
Less than. Yeah.
Yes, and they're not. And a lot of them are doing really amazing things. And one of those particular people, and I'm sure you probably know who I'm talking about, passed away not long ago. And there are so many great public figures over the years that had disabilities that a lot of people did not know about.
Yeah.
They didn't let it stop them. They went forward. They did what needed to be done. And I guess to me, I want to concentrate on all three of those groups in every way we possibly can. And that reminds me, I do have a question I need to ask you in private later.
Okay.
I had almost forgotten about that. That reminds me. Yep, I need to ask you and a couple other folks, actually.
Okay. We can make another call if you want to.
Alrighty. Okay, what do you think? This kind of goes along the same lines as the last question, but what do you think gamers can do to help create positive change in the world?
I think as the more recent years, I think it's starting to move that direction. You know, gaming has always been a long-standing trope. It's like, oh, I'm a gamer. I play video games. Like, live in your mom's basement and you're overweight and eat Cheetos and blah blah blah. It's that
The
trope
stereotypes.
it's real hard to get past that. But when you see more and more people, especially like you see the average age of the gamers close to my age, I'm like, we're the ones who made gaming what it is, and the people behind us are coming up with this, and sometimes we're getting our parents into it, and the more people can get into it, I think the more they can see it's not such a negative thing. It's not such a, oh, it's just the losers that do this, and they're just because they're antisocial and they can't make friends and they're not good at sports and all that other stuff. I think the more we get people into it, the more we understand, and having these huge esport events where it's taken seriously and ESPN's hosting it, and these large facilities being built, people see it's like, hey, this is holy cow, there's 7 million people watching people play a video game. This is crazy. I need to look into this. So we just need to keep doing what we're doing, fighting that long-standing trope of just we're nothing and we play games because we're not accepted. Like, no, we play games because we want to, and you need to accept us for who we are.
Yes, I am glad you brought all of that up. That's conversations I've had with a lot of people over the past couple of years, and
yeah, exactly. I mean, I've always been a nerd or a geek or weirdo, however you want to word it like that. I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering, and back in the day, if you mentioned you did any of that, it was just like, you such a geek, whatever. It's like, but I also played sports. I was in Academy Decathlon. I was top of my class. I was, there was so many other things. Like, what? I played basketball, played football, played track, I played hockey, I played golf, I played all this. I'm like, so you can be a jock and still play games too, and still like weird fantasy stuff like Magic the Gathering. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, and so then so like I had my friends that I played Magic and Dungeons and Dragons and video games, and I had my friends I played sports with, and it took a while for any of that to kind of overlap. And so yeah, it's funny now. I mean, being 36 and stuff, somebody mentions like, "Oh, you do YouTube? What do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I have a gaming channel." They're like, well, what do you do with that? How do you? So people like watch you play a game? I'm like, yeah, it's quite popular. Like, that's kind of weird, isn't it? Like, no, it's kind of weird if you think it's weird. Like,
Exactly. What gets me about it is, and I was talking to somebody about this during a stream one time. When I was a kid and I got called a nerd and a geek and all that, it would really upset me.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's kind of like, it's a compliment. Go ahead, throw it at me. I don't care. Yeah, I'm a geek. I don't care.
Right.
And
I
what?
got little man conditioned for that too. I've been calling him weird since he was a little kid, and I'm like, if somebody calls you weird, it's not an insult. It's like the people who aren't weird, normal people are the weird ones.
Normal people are scary.
Yeah. Like, embrace your weirdness. So I tell him all the time. So I'm just like, you're weird. He goes, you're weird too.
Well, if we were all normal and all the same, the world would be so friggin' boring. We'd go out of our minds, you know. One of the things that gets me is a lot of the kids that used to pick on me and call me a geek and call me a nerd are now admitting, you know, I secretly had a comic book collection that I kept hid because I didn't want anybody to know about it when they came over.
Yeah.
And it's like we never should have had to do that. I mean, you know.
Let your nerd flag fly high.
Exactly. Well, is there anything else you want to add or that you specifically want everybody to know about you?
Well, let me see. If anybody who's watching this follows my channel, probably knows. Like, I've been married, and this coming like in 4 weeks, it's celebrating our 13-year anniversary.
Happy anniversary!
Well, thank you very much. I have a 9.5-year-old. We're not having any other kids, so we get asked that question sometimes. We've taken those steps to make sure that doesn't happen. We're cool with just one. Yeah. But so yeah, I'm off the market, ladies. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. She got to me first.
She beat you in the head and drug you off, huh?
She did. She beat me into submission a long time ago, and I'm okay with it. Let me see. I've done a lot of software development. I'm not going to go into specifics because I don't really want to, but I've sold software licenses that I wrote to every continent on the planet, pretty much. And that's something that I considered really, really awesome to be able to have somebody from, you know, nowhere in the middle of Ukraine or something contact me and say, "Oh, by the way, we found your such and such license. We want to buy a large copy of it." It's like, whoa, that's so cool.
That is incredibly cool.
So that's something that's kind of cool. I haven't done as much of that lately because it's kind of took off faster than I could keep up with it. But it's still one of those accomplishments I hang on to. I'm just like, yeah, I did sell a software license to somebody that lives in Antarctica. I can say that.
That is awesome. It really is. And the fact that you can sit and do that stuff amazes me because, all right, just put it on in terms of mods. I took the simplest mod to change, the compo pack, and all I was doing was trying to change spawn locations. 2 days and pulling my hair out and a whole lot of bad words coming out of my mouth. And I finally got it. So I cannot imagine sitting and doing what you do and not killing somebody. So that's awesome.
Trust me, as I can't call myself a software developer. I mean, I know some of it there. I don't do it as much as these guys do in some different languages, but I promise they're cussing as much as you are. When you type out, get all this code, and you get ready to run it or whatever, and it completely crashes. And it's like, what in the? That doesn't make any sense. Why is that erroring? And it's like, you fix this bug. It's like, how is that not working now? It was literally just working. I didn't even change that code. So yeah, trust me, there's just as much frustration from the side writing it as there is people trying to actually use it. And mods are in a completely different story because then you're using one person's code to change how somebody else's code works. And that's just a nightmare in itself. The fact that it works at all is just amazing in itself. So.
Well, that was one of the things I was going to ask you, just, you know, because of what all you actually do, if you had ever thought about making any mods for any games.
I considered it a while back, but I started looking into it. I'm like, you know, the few languages I know when it comes to programming don't really go towards this specific kind of game because there's, you know, hundreds of different languages and styles and formats. And I'm like, you know, I wanted to. I've had some ideas, but I'm like, I just don't know if I could spend that amount of time on it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Like I said, all I was doing was trying to change where one POY was spawning at. and it was all Greek to me. And I remember my husband comes home and he's like, "What are you doing?" Because I was sitting there. I guarantee you, I looked like something out of a nightmare. I was cussing out. The den was a mess. Stuff just strolled everywhere because I had been writing all these little notes and then wadding them up and throwing them across the room. And he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm trying to change where this POI spawns." He said, "You had never messed with code a day in your life. What the hell do you think you're doing?" I said, "Well, everybody said it's easy." Guess what? They lied. It's not easy. They lied.
It's not easy. Yeah, I remember earlier mods in Minecraft, the amount of stuff that you had to do. Because, now it's like, oh, copy the file over here and copy over this. And now they have launchers and stuff that do it for you, or installation packages that override it for you, and keeps it as simple as possible. I'm like, you have to be able to go into these zip files and delete this file and change this code. And it's like, that's one of the reasons why I never used any mods back when I was actually playing all the time. When people would ask me to, I'm just like, no, absolutely not. That's way too much work to do this. Broken everything, and I don't have to start from scratch.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And I love the launchers. The launchers are my saving grace. So
exactly. And pretty much what you learn real quick is make a backup before you start installing mods. That way, when you screw everything up, you can just restore and like, okay, let's try again tomorrow.
Oh, I did that the first time I went to install Starvation. And I did not make a backup. And it was like, oh God, what did I just do? Because it was all messed up. And of course, the first thing I do is go to yelling for my husband. And he's like, "Do not mess with these things again. I'm tired of trying to fix them."
Exactly. It's like, what did you do?
Yeah, but I was like, "Look, I just want to play the games. I don't want to have to do all this other end." I said, "So that's what you're for." And he said, "Well, at least I'm good for something."
Keep me around for one reason.
That was
such a...
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, that was one thing I had wanted to kind of ask you. Does your wife play any games? With me and my husband, we both game. And so I just kind of wondered how it works with a couple that, I've heard nightmare stories from some gamers about their spouse being real horrible about it, and making fun of them and throwing fits. And so and I could tell by the way you talk about her and the way you talk about your family, it doesn't seem like she's that type. I was just wondering if she ever wonders about, maybe venturing into your world for a while, or...
No, she's not a gamer. Like I said, she tried the mobile games. And she liked it a little bit. It just really wasn't her thing.
Yeah.
When she was a kid, she had an NES, she had a Genesis, and she played games. And funny enough, when we first started dating, I'd go over to her house, and it was long since past this, but we'd play, Paperboy or Yoshi or Dr. Mario or something like that. And she would destroy me. It was not funny. I mean, I'm coming over like, oh yeah, I play games, been playing games forever. So I'm gonna just scoot over, little miss. I'll show you how to do this. And she wipes the floor with me. And didn't really keep up with that for that and didn't really care. I've offered several times, but she just doesn't have a care in the world about playing that. But funny enough, if I load up the Raspberry Pi and I've specifically got games on there that she liked as a kid, she can still destroy me at Paperboy. It's not even fun. I'm like, I don't get to play. She's on like Thursday and hasn't missed a house yet. And I'm like, I want to play. Die.
Oh man, I think that's awesome. That is awesome. I know you said you had things to do. I'm going to let you get to them. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Cap. And
it's my pleasure.
Okay, guys, that was the first of our interviews with all the great folks from Rise. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it gave you a little more insight into what Cap is like as a person instead of just, a face or a voice coming out of your PC or TV, however you stream the videos. I also hope that it kind of gave you a little insight as to why he was one of the people I chose for Rise. I'm going to get started on some more interviews. They will be announced who they will be with and what days they will air at a later time. I hope you guys tune in for all of them. I think it's going to be really fun to see how everybody answers these questions and what everybody's personalities are like when they're not the one controlling the video, you know? I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised by all of them. Like I said, just an amazing group of people. Capp, thank you so much for being such a great sport and for doing this. And you guys, I think this is going to be a blast. I can't wait for us to get more of these under our hats. Well, under our belts. Excuse me. And you guys, seriously, go check out Capp on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. You won't be disappointed, I promise. Okay, guys, for now, I am out of here. Thank you for dropping by, and you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.